Hello, Brad here, just to say we're super proud that the Friday 5pm podcast is sponsored by the Malt Miller, the UK's best home brew store.
We use the Malt Miller for all of our homebrew experiments, as well as tapping them up for advice and binging on their awesome YouTube channel all the time.
That's why whenever we release a homebrew video, we put a recipe kit live on the Malt Miller, so you can brew with the exact same amazing ingredients that we did. The same ingredients used by pro brewers.
So alongside the Malt Miller's nitro-flushed hops, cold-stored yeast and milled-to-order malts, you can pick up recipe kits for our 5 Points Best Bitter, Russian River West Coast IPA, and now the fastest beer in the world, a hazy session IPA that goes from grain to glass in less than 48 hours.
Sign up to their newsletter at tinyurl.com/Malt Miller to get 5% off your first order. With the Malt Miller's amazing customer service and Jonny's 48-hour recipe, you could order the ingredients on a Monday and be drinking the beer by the weekend.
Speaking of which, it's Friday.
It's 5pm.
So enjoy this week's Friday 5pm podcast. Beer geeks, it's Caskmas Eve. I hope you've got an early bedtime scheduled, no booze for today to prepare for the onslaught of cask tomorrow, and that you will, of course, be joining us for our first ever live cask-based broadcast. The Cask Broadcast. The Broad Cask. I think I've run out of puns. Bradley?
Not any puns, but I've heard that if only good boys and girls get cask ale on Caskmas Day, and Santa Brad doesn't visit unless you leave him a bacon sandwich underneath the Caskmas tree.
So basically there's going to be a lot of uneaten bacon sandwiches around the UK because Brad is not doing the deliveries, and hopefully you've received your mini casks by now. If you have no idea what we're talking about, tomorrow is our next live show, and we've teamed up with 5 Points, one of our favourite cask ale brewers, to do a probably 5-hour broadcast all about the joys of cask ale. Now, if you haven't managed to, if this is all passed you by, or you haven't managed to get hold of the beers, absolutely go down to your local independent bottle shop or retailer and grab some 5 Points beers or some best bitters and porters, and join us tomorrow starting at 6pm on our YouTube channel, and you can enjoy some unedited cask nonsense. And there's a link to that in the descriptions box below. Bradley, how's your week been?
Yeah, it's been all right, mate. Just plodding along like everybody else mid-lockdown. Can't wait for it to open up again, everything.
We're getting there. We can meet on Monday.
I know, right?
Meet with friends. What a weird notion.
Is that meet with... What's the deal on Monday then? Meet with who?
Six people outside of your home.
Whoa, that's big. Now all I've got to do is get 6 friends, and then I'm set. Oh well. No, how's your week been, Jonny? What have you been doing? How's your week in beer?
It's been good. It's been a very beery week. I'm genuinely probably not going to have a drink today in preparation for tomorrow, because basically this week I started doing research for my book around Easter beer.
Ooh.
And that meant that I bought some Easter beer and had my beer of the year so far.
Go on, then.
Which was the Bière de Mars from the brewery of St. Mars of the Desert up in Sheffield. So, they are obsessed, like I am, with the Brewery de Dollar in Belgium. And for me, this Bière de Mars, was like somebody had just dialed down the ABV of my favourite beer in the world, Arrow beer. So it was like brioche and honey and really spiky bitterness and loads of isomyl acetate, loads of foam banana notes. It was just an incredible, heady, spiky, bitter experience, but so crushable at 5.5, I think. And it's just incredible. So if you do have the opportunity to pick up a can, do. And I've just got off the phone with the owner of the Brewery St. Mars of the Desert to chat about Easter beer, which, I don't know, what do you think an Easter beer should be, Brad? Got any idea in your head?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking I think what a lot of people would probably think if they've been on the socials of late, Goose Island brought out the Cadbury's cream egg cream stout, which, I mean, I have no idea what other than that, what an Easter beer should be. It seems like it might have been invented by Clinton's cards, like Valentine's Day. Well, not Valentine's Day, but Mother's Day, Father's Day, all that kind of stuff. Is this a cynical another thing? What's an Easter beer, Johnny? Why is it an Easter beer?
I mean, let's make it really clear. The AB InBev versus Craft collab, that was a cynical Clinton-style cash-in. Easter beer has loads and loads of history, but no real way of defining it. So in Germany, you have the Bock beers that were made around Easter. They were brewed strong and dark, ready for the gap where nobody brewed in summer. In pretty much all around the world, because we couldn't control the temperature of fermentation, so the beers often got infected. So you take a break during summer and only age your beer in winter when it was much cooler.
Okay.
So you've got the Bock beers of Germany, where they're brewing to last until the harvest. You've then got the Lent beers of Belgium and Eastern France, which were brewed as a religious kind of festival. So, at an Easter feast. But also some were brewed to fortify you during Lent when you were fasting.
Nice.
Which might be the origins of why the Germans call their big Bock beers, their Doppelbocks. The first one ever made was called Salvator, which was made by Paulaner, and that means saviour.
Ah,
so that could be a little historical link. And then there's sort of Easter beers, like modern Easter beers, which were possibly invented by the Dollar brewers in 1983, or by Schlagmörder, who I think they make a spiced ale, and then Boskun, which is the dollar beer, is made with Mauritian sugar and re-fermented in the bottle with honey, and otherwise it's like a giant version of Arrow beer.
Wow.
So yeah, it's sort of all over the place, but it's all around like the idea of celebrating Easter and preparing either for not brewing over the summer or fasting during Lent.
I like it.
And I think the idea of these Lent beers were like they were drunk fresh. So they're generally like a little bit sweet, a little bit heady, and sort of bready.
Cut out the chocolate for Lent, get straight on the beers. Classic monk thinking there.
Exactly, yeah. And of course we don't really have that in the UK because we tore down all our monasteries.
We did.
Yeah.
We did abolish them, didn't we, and all the rest of it.
Henry VIII wanted to get divorced, and so he screwed over a beer geek trying to write a book about British seasonal brewing, didn't he? He didn't think of that in 40 or something.
So you're saying if he hadn't abolished the monasteries, we would have had monastic beers as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I don't know whether they'd have tasted the same as what we sort of see as monastic beers, which is generally that Belgian tradition. But obviously, there's monastic beers in Germany, the lagers as well. We'd have had our own.
What about Buckfast? I mean, it's not a beer, but is that monastic? I guess that's monastic.
I don't think so. There aren't any monasteries. I think they're just playing up the old monk thing for a bit of branding, or maybe it was based on a recipe somebody found from a long time ago.
A tramp found while he was drinking.
But that's wine, isn't it?
It's fortified wine, isn't it? Yeah, it's crazy stuff.
Yup. So yeah, there you go. There's my diatribe on Easter beer, which you'll be able to read in my book when it comes out. If it comes out, I was just telling Brad I'm freaking out, but it's going to be fine. I'll get it over the line.
I've got faith, mate.
Thanks, man. Shall we talk about our video from this week then?
Yeah, go on then.
So this week we released... Well, we talked about a style that nobody really likes, nobody really gets, and brewers don't really know what it is, and that's the Black IPA. And I feel like we both came in pretty confident knowing what it was, and then tried two, and then an export India Porter, and walked away going, yeah, I don't actually know what it is.
Yeah, it was a weird one. Yeah, like you say, I think we both had expectations of how it should be defined. And they were kind of all set up on the wayside. It was an interesting one. What do you make of them in general, Black IPAs? Are you a fan? I mean, they're not sessionable beers, and I do like a sessionable beer.
Yeah, I mean, the flavours are pretty bold. My issue with black IPA is I'm not quite sure what the occasion is for them. Like when I'm looking for a dark, roasty, wintry beer, I'm not thinking black IPA. And when I'm wanting a big hit of hops, I'm thinking, a blonde IPA or maybe a red IPA if I want something a little bit more caramelly. So I don't quite get who black IPA is meant to appeal to. Is it porter drinkers who miss hops, or is it hop lovers who miss dark malts?
It's a real fusion of those two styles, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who it's for either. I don't know when there's an occasion for it, other than just going, oh, cool, they've got a black IPA on. I'll have one of those, and then moving back to something else.
I think that's its place. It's like it's almost certainly when we were first getting into craft beer around like 2012, 2013. It was kind of a symbol that the brewery was taking this craft thing seriously. It was like, we've got this weird ass style and you're going to have one of it and then never go back. And that's sort of the role that the black IPA's played for a long time. It's just a weird thing to tick off and to go, how interesting. But it never really sells through. So this little glut of black IPAs we're having, I don't think will last.
No. Is it like the Brute IPA?
Well, I mean, I hope the Brute IPA never comes back because, I mean, the issue I had with the Brute IPA is, you used amyloglucosidase, got a really dry beer, but there's dry IPAs out there already.
Yeah.
And I remember St. Austell, their big job, their big IPA, that they used that enzyme to get a really dry beer already, just for a normal IPA. Like it's not a shift in style, it's just a dry IPA. It's not. It was a marketing term, basically. Brute IPA. That's what I took issue with. It's like it's not different. It's different names for the same thing, which I think is a Death Cab for Cutie lyric. Should we look into the comments?
Let's do it.
I understand you've got a hilarious one. Should we do hilarity or nerding first?
Well, I've got a few. I've got some people commenting on my attire. So we had a comment from Chris Green saying, "This is possibly the most hipster look Brad has had since lockdown." Which I don't know, man. I don't know whether trucker hats are hipster anymore. They certainly
I think it was the neckerchief.
Was it the neckerchief? I was watching the state of the neckerchief throughout the video, and it was getting more and more unwrapped around my neck to the point where it looked like it was going to fall off. But we had filmed quite a lot that day, so
that was episode number 5, I think. Sadly, one episode had to be binned due to our mic issues. We're getting new mics today. Apologies for this. This video went live late because we were buying the replacement microphones and lost track of time. So apologies for that. But yeah, we have fixed our mic issue, hopefully.
So we had someone having a pop at my look, and we also had someone having a pop at how we sound, Johnny. We had Srups11 said, "No chance of a copyright strike from that rendition, gents." I assume he was referring to our Akadaka Back in Black amazing cover version that we started the show off with. Cheeky
it was the kind of thing, like when we did it, I don't think either of us expected it to end up in the final edit, but I was just like, it's going to be too funny to use that as the intro music. So yeah, and we haven't had a copyright strike, so Srups is correct that the YouTube algorithm didn't clock it. Oh yeah, it could still happen.
Yeah,
could still happen. I think we'd have pretty strong grounds to reject that copyright claim.
I think if they come after us, we just start wearing Angus Young style schoolboy outfits with shorts and
how would that help?
Just to say, "F you guys, we're rock and roll." We just hop around everywhere, doing that sort of weird scissor kick thing he does. Yeah, I reckon.
Okay, well that is a form of defence in court, I guess. Just scissor kicking around in shorts.
Yeah. Great stuff.
What
do you think of people that always wear shorts throughout the year, Johnny? You know what I'm talking about. They're idiots.
I don't get
these men, don't you, that just walk around in shorts? Like even if there's snow on the ground, you'll see.
I don't know what they're trying to prove.
What are you doing? What are you doing, man? Like your legs, they need a little bit of covering. It's an odd one.
At least women, if they wear shorts or skirts, generally they'll have tights on. So maybe we should go around giving tights to the men who wear shorts all year round and go like, be more sensible. Take a cue from the women who've been doing this for longer.
Yeah, I agree. I was out on my. I've been noticing a lot of men running now are wearing what is essentially tights, which I find slightly disturbing, without a pair of shorts above the lycra.
I've been one of those people, Brad.
Have you? I'm not sure about that look. I think that's too bold a look. I'm not sure everyone wants to see it.
It is a bold look, but it does reduce chafage.
Reduces chafage, but
yeah,
it. I don't know. Anyway,
this is a beer podcast. This is a beer podcast.
I had an old boss who had a lycra fetish.
You've already told this story on the podcast, bro.
Have I? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. We'll move swiftly on then. Are you sure I haven't just bored you with it? Okay.
I'm 100%.
Let's have some serious beer comments.
So, we got a great comment from Johnny Heath, who says, what do you change in dark lagers versus regular ones? I feel like applying that to an IPA is the most natural fit as to what a black IPA should be. Or just to take a dark lager recipe, swap to an ale use, throw in some more hops, boom, black IPA. And then he says, can you tell I'm not a brewer? Now, Johnny Heath is not a brewer, but he is bang on. That is how the original black IPAs were made. So all the original black IPA made by Greg Noonan and his team, and indeed Mitch Steele, supremely self-righteous, sublimely, oh my God, the Stone one. That was made by taking a classic IPA malt grist and then putting in a little bit of Carafa Special 3, which is a dehusked, heavily roasted malt. So you dehusk it to reduce the astringency, throw that in and you get the colour. And that's what's used in German Schwarzbiers. So Johnny Heath was bang on, and maybe he should be a brewer.
Do you think you could just... Well, I think maybe we should just add black food colouring to it, so you don't get the weird roasty toastiness.
I mean, that's what other brewers do. But you want a little hint of roast, which is why Carafa's so great. Yeah. Whereas I think actually James, which is the Hill Farmstead beer, uses not cinnamon. Oh God, my mouth won't work today. But basically, what is essentially an extract of colouring to give it the exact colour. But it's still got lots of character, that beer, lots of roasted and darker malt character. We also got another comment from Copenay Olivier.
Great name.
Who said, I like the name Cascadian Dark Ale because it doesn't give the expectation of IPA hop character and it's less nonsense than Black India Pale Ale. To which this... Cascadian Dark Ale for me is a different beer. Cascadian Dark Ale is... So if Black IPA was a phenomenon from New England in the mid-90s, Cascadian Dark Ale was 3 or 4 years later and from the Pacific Northwest, from Cascadia. And a Cascadian Dark Ale is lower ABV, usually drier and less complicated, and usually significantly less hoppy. So they are quite different beers. They're more like a slightly bitter, slightly hoppy porter, and usually real like pine and resin notes, like really resiny Douglas fir, Christmas tree kind of vibes. Whereas black IPAs will take some caramel, they'll take lots of citrus character and all that kind of stuff and be more IPA. So I think they are two separate things. So Copenay Olivier is correct. It has different expectations, but that's because...
Interesting stuff. I do think Cascadian Dark Ale sounds like something a vampire might drink.
Oh, definitely. That's definitely what the vampires are drinking. Yeah. Cool. So that was this week's video. If you haven't watched it, there is a link in the descriptions box below where we talk all about what a black IPA is and get ourselves in a complete and utter twist about it by the end, by drinking a Colonel Export India Porter for comparison and deciding that was a better beer. But it was a better beer, but it wasn't a better black IPA. It was too roasty. We've also we didn't have a question sent in to us this week. If you do want to send a question, please record it and send it to craftbeerboys@gmail.com and we will play it and we will answer it. But we did have a great question on our Patreon Discord forum, which you can join. There's a link to that below as well. From a new member called Ben Alan. And he said, any thoughts on why breweries don't do more 330 mils, especially on bigger beers? I'm usually drinking solo at home, so this would make things slightly easier to try more beers before hitting the tipsy tipping point. / piling on quite such a gut. Is it just fetishization of 440s as the epitome of craft beer cool, or are there practical reasons in play? Tell me about the fetishization. Do you think that's a thing, Brad?
Definitely. I think people love the idea of like big boys or whatever. In my brain, being nearly a 40-year-old man and drinking a lot throughout my adolescence, I associate bigger cans with like really, really awful, cheap lager or cider that you might get at a house party. So for me, I'm not fetishizing the big boy. But certainly I think a lot of younger drinkers who've maybe grown up with 330 ml and probably see that in terms of more of a sort of soft drink or a soda kind of can size would think, whoa, look at this, it's massive. Like, there's a thing about getting good value and about feeling like you're getting something extra. I guess also you kind of got more room on the label to play with and do sexy artwork and work with artists. And a lot of great breweries do amazing collaborations on their beer label artwork. So it's a bigger canvas. It's like a 12-inch record versus a 7-inch record, I suppose. So there are some good points to it, but I kind of agree. I think I like a smaller format, definitely for a bigger beer. And it is weird that you get the bigger beers often in the bigger format. Why do you think they do that, Johnny?
Well, so I guess the main reason that we have it in the UK at least is because it's a similar format to the American IPAs that we were all fetishizing 5 years ago. So in America, they're 4.73 mil, I think. Because obviously they're using the imperial system, so it doesn't quite equate out. But so I think there was a bit of matching of what was happening in America, and in America for sure, I think expensive stuff. That wasn't really a can size that was really used in America so much. So when it came out in that size, it was a point of differentiation from soft drinks and from less quality beer. But in the UK, it's weird, isn't it? Because 440s were what Foster's and Carlsberg and all this nonsense came in. So in the UK, it's a slightly strange decision not to go for 330s, where, you'd have been like a can of Coke, but there weren't many of those in the alcohol aisles. So, I mean, basically it comes down to the fact that Cloudwater did it. Cloudwater were sort of the big first big name to go into can in sort of the IPA scene. And they did a poll on Twitter, I remember, and they asked, should it be 330s, 440s, or 500s? And 440s won out by quite a significant proportion, I think. I think because people saw it as the compromise. They're like, I want a bit more beer, but 500 is too much. So we all landed on 440 without really thinking about the implications of an 8% dipper or a 10% imperial stout or whatever it is. So, I mean, I wish they came in smaller cans. But it's always been that way. We used to put, do you remember Unhuman Cannonball from Magic Rock?
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
An 11% beer, and they were releasing that in 750s and putting all their other beers into 330s. So
that is just asking for... Well, I get... Okay. So the other reason why they do it is because bottle shares, right? You can share it out. That's
potentially.
That's a good shout for bottle share. A bigger serving.
It's the sense of occasion as well. It's a big bottle of something special. So whether you're sharing it or not, it's like it's feeding into that idea of making this a special thing.
I'm trying to think back in the mists of time to, I think even before a lot of craft beer revolution stuff was going on. Certainly for me anyway. And I can remember this drink that was called Four Loko. That was like some mad, maybe like an energy drink beer or some crazy shit. And that was in a massive can. I think it made people go crazy. But that was maybe the first, one of the first things I saw that was a huge can that people were kind of talking about. Not in a crafty way, but I can't remember exactly what a Four Loko was, but I know it was like a sort of party drink that people drank.
There's
in
a little
America
craze that happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just taking a little step back, there are practical reasons for 440s, right? So the first one is that it's more efficient. So it's more sustainable. There's more metal going into one package, although cans are not that sustainable, despite what we tell ourselves. So there's that. There's also the fact that a bigger format won't change temperature as much. There'll be less oxygen in that can compared to the amount of liquid. So with IPAs, that's going to give them a slightly longer shelf life. And then it's a better price, it's better value for the consumer, and it's also a better volume, margin for the brewer in terms of the amount of work that has to go into how much liquid gets out. So there are lots of reasons, the bigger the format, the easier it's going to be for the brewer. So I think that does feed into it another way, but I think it is mostly fetishization. The right people went into those 440s. Maybe Four Loko had its influence, and now we're bloody stuck with it. But I do think if we want to promote sustainable and healthy drinking, really anything over 6% should really be going into 330s.
Yeah, agreed.
But yeah, there you go. Craft beer is known for making decisions that aren't in its best interest, and I think that was probably one of them. So yeah, that's pretty much all we've got time for this week. The last thing we need to tell you about is the fact that not only do we have our show tomorrow with 5 points, next week we are one of the stages at Siren Craft Brew's incredibly ambitious Grateful Eight Digital Beer Festival, when they'll be celebrating their 8th birthday with some amazing and delicious beers. We've tried a couple, and you can still get your hands on them. You can still order the drink along box, and it's an all-day festival, 2 till 8, with an after party, I think, of some music. So it's going to be a big old day, and we've got a panel about independence in a post-COVID world. We've got a cook along with burgers. We've got how to taste beer like a beer judge. And then a taste along of the special beers brewed for the event. That's what's happening on our stage, as it were. So there's links to all of that in the descriptions for this podcast as well. Anything left to add, Bradders?
Only that I'm pretty excited to be at the Pembury tomorrow, drinking amazing cask straight from the bar and eating delicious pizza. With some good buddies. We're going to be living. So yeah,
if you are joining us, make sure you have pizza for dinner, because we'll be doing a pizza and beer matching masterclass as well. So go pick up some beers, even if they're not the real ones. We're drinking Best, we're drinking Porter, and we're drinking American Pale. And you can join in the fun, even if it's not the right beers, with some pizza. So we will see you guys tomorrow, unless you're listening on Dave, in which case, I don't know, just go back and listen to all the podcasts we've ever made. That sounds like fun. The Bubble Podcast is brought to you by the nerds behind YouTube's Craft Beer channel. Head to youtube.com/the Craft Beer channel to watch this week's video and over 400 more exciting episodes. If you love what we do, please do subscribe and even join our Patreon at patreon.com/craftbeer channel. Love and beer.